Welcome to Booktopia TV. I'm John Purcell, and I'm here with best-selling author Judy Nunn to talk about her new book, Elianne. Welcome, Judy.
Hello, John. Nice to be here.
First up, I want to congratulate you on selling your millionth book.
I know it's a bit overwhelming, isn't it?
A million?
Well, yeah. I mean, they say at least. So, I mean, probably might be 1,000,003, might be 1,030,030, might be 1,300,000.
I was thinking about it the other day. If you've sold 1 million and people lend and hand out books to their friends and the like, that's, I mean, we're generous and we say 3 people read each copy. Holy moly.
I know. A friend of mine said that the other day too. And it is. I am overwhelmed. I think, my golly, I embarked upon writing novels because I wanted to. And when the first one sold very well and all of that, I'm absolutely thrilled. I thought, wow, I'll write another one. And then number 3, and then with 3 books, people are starting to take a little notice. Probably in your area, you know, the one book wonder thing doesn't really happen that much in Australia. It might happen in America, I don't know. But I suddenly thought, gosh, I wonder if I could sort of make a living at this. So for this to now sort of happen, and this is my whole career, I had never envisaged that in my life. I thought, oh, aren't you lucky you've had a book published? What, 1, 2, 3, wow. And now 1 million sales, and as you say, probably several million people having read the book, which is, to me, of course, the most thrilling factor. The fact that people actually read it. Not so much that they buy something, but that they read it. I love it.
On that, because of the amazing number of sales, what do you think is the secret to your success with these books? What is it? Is it some way of tapping into something in the Australian reader? Is it?
Look, I don't know. I don't know. Obviously, I have hit some nerve that has brought about this response and given me these wonderful thank you readers. But I didn't deliberately plan that. I wrote the first 2 books about what I knew, which was the world of entertainment. First a television industry, then the publishers at the time then wanted to call me Australia's new Jackie Collins, so they said 2-book deal, right? We want a 2-book deal. And I said, oh, all right, something I won't do again. I don't like, carrying that responsibility around with me. I'm a 1-book a time person. But I took that. But the second one I thought, well, I don't want to do the first book about television, which was called The Glitter Game. I don't want to repeat that. And I said it would be based in the theatre, which I knew a great deal about the theatre, the keep it simple, stupid principle, the KISS principle. So I turned that into a thriller, and it went over 2 generations of family. Then the 3rd book, which was the next of my 2nd book deal, I said, right, well, they'll want that to be set in the entertainment industry, so I made it about movie making. But I brought my mogul out, the ancestor of my mogul, in 1850 and settled him as a winemaker next door to Dr. Penfold in the Barossa Valley in South Australia. So I thought, you'd better learn a bit about winemaking, Jude, and a little bit about the times. So I suddenly got embroiled in, and then 3 generations later, I finally get my mogul, who goes into movies in the 1940s. There was a big movie industry in Australia, which a lot of people don't know about. Yes, particularly working out of Bondi. They had whopping great studios at Bondi Beach. And I got so carried away with all of these things I was learning, and I had my characters, my fictional characters, but living through these real periods of Australian history that I myself found fascinating. So I thought, oh, this is what I want to do now. So the 4th book, I went well and truly completely away from showbiz, which I knew. So I stuffed the KISS principle. I'll research.
So on that, you obviously got a taste for the research and the history. You went on to do Cal, which was about the mining, gold mining in Western Australia.
Yep.
And then you went back to Sydney, and you gave us pretty much a history of Sydney in over the 200 years up until the Olympics. Then you went to the snowy...
the Snowy Mountains, yes, in a book called
Mountains.
Heritage, yep.
So it's almost like a walk right around Australia to our most significant moments, culturally, in business, in some of the like the clash of the migrants and things like that was going on in the Snowy River that gave you all those extra stories. Is it fair to say that the historical part of your writing is now taken over? Is it?
Very good question. No, the historical part hasn't taken over, but the historical part is my inspiration. I mean, the characters will always rule my novel. Quite frankly, the research element in my novels is hard yakka. Yeah. And sometimes I think, oh gosh, you're going to write, well, for instance, you just said the one in the Snowy. I thought, what do I know about engineering? What do I know about the building of dams? What do I know about hydroelectricity? But what I really ultimately wanted to write about was the first seed sown of a multicultural society, virtually, because in that area in the Snowies, the foreigners, as they were, outnumbered the Aussies. And for the first time, Australians in that area around Cooma, in the Snowies, they were outnumbered by people from different lands who ate differently, dressed differently, spoke different languages. And they were completely outnumbered. It was the Aussies who learned far more than the Europeans. The Europeans actually all got on really well. They'd come out to carve a new life for themselves. That's what interested me. But in the meantime, to keep it realistic, I have to know a bit about mining. I have to know a bit about the building of the Snowies. I have to know what these people were actually physically doing. Yeah. So that, I heave a big sigh and I think, oh, you can't do this, you can't do this. But the inspiration, you can, of course, if you set your mind to it, but the inspiration will usually be, it'll be either something like, yes, it was that migrant, that absolute influx of migrants in post-World War II. In another thing, for instance, in Territory, which is based in the Northern Territory, the top end, most predominantly Darwin, it's the city itself and what it went through. Yep. And that is the bombing of the Japanese bombing in 42 and then Cyclone Tracy in 74, annihilated in that short period of time completely. And yet those people get in there and build it up again. So that was actually what happened. With Maralinga, for instance, it was not the place, it was not the historical event, it was the absolute crime that took place there. So that was more a political novel. That so I mean, South Australia, the nuclear testing ground set up in the deserts of South Australia. So usually the inspiration it'll be some specific. Then it won't necessarily be an area or a period, but there'll be something specific. And then, of course, I'll put my people there.
Well, I was reading that this is your first novel set in Queensland, Elianne.
Yeah.
And it was being in a sugar plantation and smelling the sickly sweet smell of the sugar cane itself that set you off to write this one. Can you tell me a bit about the novel?
Yeah. Yes, I had wanted to set a book in Queensland, and it was the smell of the sugar mill that I thought, oh gosh, and it hit me. And I thought that smell would never have changed. So I think I've always been very embraced by Queenslanders when I go to Queensland, and this is the first novel, as you said, that I've based there. And I hummed and hawed about which side it was. I thought of the Great Barrier Reef. I thought that's been done. So definitely it was Queensland that initially attracted me. But if I hadn't actually smelt that sugar smell, I might have moved on to somewhere else. I thought, yes, sugarcane, that would be very interesting. I know very little about it, and I went to Bundaberg, which is a gorgeous town, and fell in love with Bundaberg. And I thought, oh yes, that'd be nice. And then it was the smell of the sugar. And it was the unchangeable fact that I thought, right, I could set this book at any period in the history of this sugarcane, because that mill would always smell the same. It would always be that evocative, because parts of the book do deal in my flashbacks to the past, in the 1890s through to the turn of the century, to the Commonwealth government and the abolition of the White Australia policy in 1901. And yet, predominantly, the book is set in the 1960s. And during that whole time, the smell of that would have been the same. Yeah. It's pretty inspirational, actually.
Well, again, with the story, there are the clash of different cultures coming together. And because, I mean, Australia is such a new place, and there's always new people coming through. You have Italians, you have Germans coming in, making money and making a success in Australia. There's a kind of an optimism in these books, I think, with what Australia can actually do for people.
Yeah.
I just wanted to go back onto the research, because you take 2 years to write a book. how much of that, I mean, you say that it's a bit of a chore side of it, but how much of that time is reading, taking up the reading to work out the backstories and the details?
Yeah, look, I'd say at least, I'm about to go out on tour for Elianne shortly, and my head is already thinking of the next book, which I can't get too involved with because I want my head to be in Elianne while I'm meeting people, etc. But this is how soon that I'll actually be thinking about what I'm going to do, and actually probably surfing around on the net a bit for stuff that will help inspire me. Then I won't rely upon that. It's too unreliable to pin everything on what you can haul off the net. So then I'll make my contacts before Christmas, and then usually it'll be I'll make a research trip to wherever I'm going very early in the new year.
How long would you stay?
I'll probably make a couple of research trips, but it probably won't be more than a week or 10 days.
Okay.
But the funny thing is when I was doing territory, a mate of mine had lived in Darwin for 9 months, and I was up in Darwin. I'd been there before, but only on book promotion, actually, for previous books. But I knew I was going to write about it. And I went up there for a week. And I remember Norman, my mate, said, "Oh, Judy, you'd have to go and live there for at least 6 months to write a book." And I said, "Norman, if I had to do that, well, look at the heritage one. I went to about 6 different countries for where these migrants came from, cities in different countries. If I had to go and live there for 9 months or 6 months or something every time I'm going to base a book, well, I'd be broke." But I said, the funny thing is, once you go somewhere and you know you're going to write and set a book there, you literally have this amazing love affair with it, and you see it through the eyes of the characters and the period you're dealing with. I mean, I've actually walked through the streets of Darwin, and I've seen Chinatown. I mean, admittedly, the Chinese there were all embracing, and they showed me they have this to-scale model, massive, that it fits a whole table. And so maybe I was walking through their model. But I was walking through Darwin, where Chinatown was obliterated in 1942. But you feel you're walking through it. It's a weird thing. So the research trips would probably be maybe 2, 3 to wherever, to Cooma, to Darwin, to, in this case, Bundaberg. And then always the librarians in these places. The librarians are wonderful people. And I will get whole boxes of material, either from them or where I can put my hands on them.
I was reading a little bit about some of the background stories to your novels on your website, and it struck me that you live to my mind, such a large life. You've had for many people, you've had 2 lives. You've been successful in the stage and on TV, and you've been very successful as a novelist. There's little stories that you give behind the novels that so much of what you write about is based on your own experiences in life. I suppose you might suggest to writers to get out there, like before you start putting pen to paper. Would that be a good advice for any aspiring writer?
Oh gosh, look, I don't know how to advise any aspiring writer. I mean, if somebody of 10 years of age wants to write, then write. If you're inspired to write, then write. Whoever, whatever you are, write that book that you want to write. Then for your next one or your next one after that, I mean, spread your wings, grow a bit, there must surely be a voice that I have that is peculiar to me, that some people has a sameness or something, but I know that for me, I need to keep raising the bar high. I don't want to become a formula writer. As I say, I know there's obviously a style that I have that has, which is why I have readers who are following me. That's great, but I don't think they can say, "Oh, that book's the same as that book." You literally, you've changed the characters, changed the scenario, but it's really, I need to keep raising the bar, and that would be a suggestion I would give to anybody who, just test yourself. Just keep testing yourself, and as you learn, and this is what I have found in studying up on the historical research that's required. Once I decide, yes, I'll write about this rather daunting, what am I going to write about nuclear, experimentation? What do I know about that? But, well, you've got to set your characters there because this is the subject you want. So learn, go out and learn. And as you do, although the amount of work required is daunting, you'll bump into stuff that, frankly, you thought you were just researching for dates and facts and figures and what went on and all of it, and you'll bump into this stuff that's incredible. And you'll think, oh, God, I have to put that in. I didn't know that happened. And it just is proof of that adage that fact is stranger than fiction. really. You couldn't have invented it yourself, and it really happened. It's great.
Well, sometimes the fact is so strange you can't actually put it in fiction. People won't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, I did that absolutely in Territory, the wreck of the Batavia, and the captain took off, and there was this great mutiny and everything, and everybody was about to get murdered, and back comes the captain, with a rescue ship 3 months later, and just as they're about to all get murdered. Now, if you put that, and I did put it in a book, of course, but nobody, it's all recorded there in Pelsart's journals. Yeah. It's all absolutely recorded in his journals. So you can say, well, sorry, coincidental? You're not allowed to write coincidence. It happened.
Yeah. It's been wonderful talking to you. Just one last question. Di Morrissey, Judy Nunn, is there actually a rivalry?
Oh gosh, look, that would have to be between our publishers, I'm sure. Who sells the most? Oh, I think Di outsells me. She's such a hard worker. She's had a book per year sort of thing, I can't compete with that. No, good luck to us both. I think that there's nothing more wonderful than the fact that Australians are reading Australian writers. Good luck to us both. I think it's great.
And I have just one more thing to thank you for. Thank you for being one of the authors who has broken out of Australia with Australian stories and given a lot of new writers and Australian writers hope to be able to bring their stories to a global audience. You sell all over the world. It's a wonderful thing.
Well, I sell in a number of countries, and some of them I'm quite big in, I'm delighted to say. But yeah, well, that's terrific, and good luck to all those other Aussie authors.
Thank you very much for talking with us.
Thank you, John.
Judy Nunn's new book, Elianne, is available at booktopia.com.au right now.